with the extended lockdown, do you see Singapore's GDP contracting even more than the projected contraction of 1 to 4%?
Yes, Haslinda, that is very likely to see. We are likely to see a sharper fall in the GDP, and that's for many reasons. First, I think that worldwide, the pandemic has spread much further and wider than what many people had initially expected. Second, I think many of the domestic supply chains within the respective economies and major economies have been disrupted. Third, I think the connectivity amongst the major economies have also been disrupted, and that's going to hurt not only the short-term capacities, but it's also going to affect the long-term capabilities of the respective countries. So I think we are pretty concerned that worldwide, this is going to lead to a more serious problem than many have anticipated just a month ago.
A sharper contraction, can you quantify that for us? Because Citigroup came out to say that the contraction could be as much as 8.5%.
Sorry, Haslinda, I lost you there again. Can you repeat your question?
Minister, could the contraction be as bad as 8.5% as projected by Citi?
I think at this point in time, it's not so useful to look at a precise number, but I think we should focus on making sure that the domestic capacities are maintained and we continue to develop the long-term capabilities. In the short term, I think the challenges that all of us face is to make sure that we can hold on to the jobs that our workers have, and also that our businesses can continue to have the cash flow and the credit lines to them. If we can do this well, then we will be able to preserve our short-term capabilities and capacities, and that will also aid us in the subsequent recovery.
Minister, as we've been reporting, most of the cases are found in the foreign worker dormitories. Singapore has almost 1 million foreign laborers who are now confined to their own spaces. What impact might that have on the various industries, like the shipyards, like manufacturing, like construction? Give us a sense of how much impact that would have.
Haslinda, at this point in time, the cases in Singapore can be divided into two groups. One, for the domestic population, our numbers are holding steady at about 20 per day, but we are not complacent because we know how this virus can surprise us. At the same time, we are doing aggressive testing for our migrant workers population. And we know that for many of the young, healthy male migrant workers, even if they are symptomatic, they might be carriers of the virus. So we have been extremely careful to make sure that we provide them the best healthcare possible. And we are aggressively testing even those who are not symptomatic before. Of course, the migrant workers, many of them would be in the industries like construction, marine and offshore. And at this current moment, they are staying in their dormitories for a period of time for us to make sure that they are healthy before we resume work. But for the rest of the economy, for those that can be done online, businesses continue to do what they need to do. And we hope that in a month's time, we will be able to progressively reopen the economy with much more testings for the entire population, and at the same time to take on the additional safe distancing measures.
So how bad will it be for construction and shipyards, Minister?
I think there'll be some delays to the projects, but overall, once the crisis subsides, we hope to pick up speed again and regain the momentum.
Minister, do you expect government policy towards foreign workers to change permanently as a result of what we're seeing in this pandemic?
All these times, we are constantly reviewing our policies to make sure that we take care of the migrant workers well. Over the last many years, we have made many improvements, but in the coming years, and I expect we will make even more improvements. The migrant workers are part of our community. They help us to build Singapore. We'll do our best to make sure that we take care of them. not just in terms of their health and security, but also in terms of their salary, mental health, and so forth. We owe them a debt of gratitude, and they are part of us. So we'll make sure that we take care of them as well as good as how we take care of our fellow Singaporeans.
Minister, I want to take a look at the extended lockdown, now extended for 8 weeks. I mean, what do you hope to achieve come June 1st? Are you looking at containment? Are you looking at eradication? What is the goal at the end of this extended lockdown?
There are a few indicators that we are looking at towards the end of the lockdown. First, our fatality rates continue to remain very low. Number two, the community spread is brought down to the single digits or in the low teens. Number three, the situation in the migrant workers' dormitories are under control and they get the quality of care that we should provide for them.
And are you optimistic that the lockdown can be lifted by June 1st? Because some say there's been a lot of flip-flopping in terms of government policies and there's a lack of consistent strategy. Your thoughts on that?
We will have to work very hard. We are never complacent. We are always reminded that when we are doing well, that we should never be complacent. And when the chips are down, we should never be discouraged. We are entirely focused on the issue at hand, which at this point in time is to make sure that we take care of the migrant workers. Number two, that our economy continue to function, our workers' jobs are maintained. So this will require collective efforts. So at this point in time, we're entirely focused to make sure that we do what is necessary and what is right for our workers and our businesses.
So at this point in time, is it fair to say that you are confident June 1st will be a go-ahead in terms of the lifting of the lockdown?
I think it's too early to say. We will continue to take calibrated measures as we have done over the entire period. As circumstances evolve, we will make sure that we put in place the measures, not just to take care of the situation at hand, but to also preempt the situation going forward. So, like for example, at this point in time, while the numbers are coming down, we are also making sure that we have a background sentinel checks to make sure that we are not caught blindsided by some other hidden cases in the community. As we have seen across the world, this is something that is not easy to handle because the nature of the virus is still not fully understood. And if we are complacent, we might just be caught blindsided. And many economies have seen that after they have overcome the first wave of infection, they might have a recurring second or even third wave of infection if they are not careful. So we are making sure that we put in place the necessary systems to progressively reopen our economy, to give ourselves the assurance that our workers will be well taken care of regardless of their background.
Minister, amid the pandemic, we're also seeing a stunning slump in oil prices, and this is important for Singapore, being it is one of the most important oil hubs in the world. We're seeing, for instance, companies like Hin Leong filing for protection. Are you expecting more companies to do so, more companies to be in distress?
I think the situation at Hin Leong is quite unique to it. There are circumstances that is special to it, and we are investigating what is happening over all these years behind the scene. It will be premature for us to make any comment at this point in time, but I don't think what is happening at Hin Leong will affect the wider market because it is but one of the players in the wider market in Singapore.
Is it conceivable that the government may step in, may intervene, may bail out companies that are in distress?
We have a policy to continue to help various companies in Singapore. These are not just strategic companies, but we have an overall package to make sure that our companies, big and small, local and foreign, continue to have the credit lines and the cash flow necessary to sustain them. And this is part of our overall plan to make sure that we maintain the capacity and the capabilities of our economy and be one of the first ones to recover if need be. So this goes beyond the particular incident that you're talking about. It's actually economy-wide help package that we have put in place.
Are you concerned that perhaps Singapore's reputation as an oil hub may be dented because of this? How confident are you?
Not at this point in time. Now and then we will always have situations that we have to deal with, but overall I think the status of Singapore as a hub, not just as an oil hub, but as a trading hub, is all right at this point in time, and we will continue to be all right if we continue. It will continue to be all right if we take the necessary measures to put in place forward-looking plans to help our companies.
Minister, I want to take a look at the global supply chain. We have economies in the region like Korea, like Vietnam, increasingly opening up the economy at a time when Singapore has extended its lockdown. Might Singapore be the hindrance in the regional supply chain, given that it is unlikely to be able to play its role in the regional manufacturing sector?
We are very concerned with the connectivity of the supply chain, and this is why over the last 1-2 weeks we have worked with like-minded countries and like-minded partners to make sure that the regional supply chains continue to flow. For example, in the area of our air and sea hub, we make sure that our airports and seaports continue to function, not just for the Singapore economy, but more importantly for the regional economy. And through this crisis, I think many people will be able to see which are the trusted hubs that they would want to do business with going forward. So in this crisis, there are both challenges and opportunities for all of us.
Minister, before we let you go, just one final question. I mean, Singapore was talking about possibly holding an election with Korea successfully, holding its election amid the pandemic. Does that give you confidence that Singapore too can hold its election this year?
Our energy is now entirely focused on tackling the crisis. As to when we should hold the election, that will be the prerogative of the Prime Ministers. But at this point in time, we are focused to make sure that the health of our people, including our migrant workers community, is well taken care of, and that our economy will be able to progressively recover. At the same time, we are also focused on building the long-term capabilities of our country.